Welcome, episode 14 of Word to Your Mama. Today we got Monalisa Murray. Now, some of you may know her as a DJ on Dub Lab, Motown Mondays, and stuff like that. And some of you know her from previous times as a hip-hop labels and promotions veteran. But anyone that knows her as someone that's super crazy knowledgeable of music. That's like facts. That's like from jump. And I think of Monalisa as someone, when I entered this scene, the music industry, the hip hop LA scene, as someone I looked up to. Someone that I saw that was doing the work, had integrity, people respected. And also someone that she hasn't changed. She's someone that is always giving, always learning, always evolving. And even back in those days when I was first starting out, and you hear the story of how I was first introduced to her, and I was like, who is this person? I never felt like she looked down on me or anyone else. Like, I've never had a sense of any ego from her. She's always grinding. She's just always down for the music, and finding more about her today, discovering more by asking her the questions of like how it all started for her. It makes all the sense in the world. So yeah, Monalisa Murray. Let's get into it. Oh yeah, but before I do that, she mentions what her hype song is. And then she says the name, and I was like, oh, I'm not familiar. But then I she was like, oh, you'll know it. You know it, but you don't know the name of it, the title of it. So I looked it up. I was like, oh, hell yeah. You know, it's a jam. You put that on, everyone starts dancing. And whoever that person was that told her that it's cliche, tripping. So let's get into it. Monalisa Murray. Got it. Well, Monalisa, I just want to say that this is big. When I was thinking about doing this as a podcast, but like I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, I made a list, right? I made a list of all the dope women that I know of. Because at first I thought it was just going to be I was only going to have women on. Like I wasn't sure what the direction of it was going to go. But years ago, and I still have the list, I wrote like all my homegirls, people that I know. And when I wrote the list, you were definitely on the list. And I was just like, and putting like all the fucking different things that we could talk about that pertain to so many of us, right? And then I was like, when I looked at the list, I was like, I have some dope ass friends. Like I have, like, there's not one person that's not in like my tribe or that I know that, you know, even if we're not that close, you're still considered my tribe because, you know, you're a significant part of my history in LA. I was like, these motherfuckers are dope. Like everyone's dope. And I was like, I'm going to have her on. And I was like, I definitely want to have her on like right in the beginning. So Monalisa Murray, you are here, so you know what you get. That's right, you get the dance hall.
Hey.
Thank you so much. When I was like trying, you know, like I was telling you before, I was like doing an outline because I just want to have a little bit of structure, but I like to just, you know, wing it. But I have some points I do want to, you know, touch upon. I was like, this is going to be similar to Rachel, when I had Rachel on here, because we could really talk for fucking hours just on your history alone, hours. So we're going to try to condense, try to get to some things. But I wanted to just start off with, I was like, how do you define Monalisa, right? And I was like, well, right now, a lot of people, I don't know what the window is, we'll get into the timeline, know you as a DJ, but you're more than that. Right. I feel like hip hop record label promotions veteran. Is that accurate, Mona Lisa?
That's accurate, yeah.
Right?
I started out doing street promotion. Yeah, I started hanging, and then I was like, nobody promotes records in the club. I don't see anybody promoting any music in the club. Like, what's new music? Every time I asked the question, I was like, let me try to answer it myself, and I tried to fit myself into that position. So I wanted to hear about new music. So I was like, well, let me find out how to promote new music. But then I was told I had to be an intern, and I was like, all right, so I have to be an intern, I have to be in school, but I'm not in school. And then it everything just happened piece after piece after piece. I ran into somebody who was working at a label and needed an intern. And then I did that for like 5 minutes. And then I ran into somebody else that needed an intern. I mean, I can tell the whole story if you want me to, go through the details. I was hanging out at like the Good Life. I was going to clubs, hanging out at the Good Life. And I ran into Link, DJ Link, who was from Compton, and he worked at Relativity. And he's like, you need to be somebody's intern. And I was like, don't I have to be in school for that? He's like, no, you want to be my intern? I was like, sure. And so then like literally like 5 days into that, we were promoting the Beat Nuts, Common, Fat Joe, a couple other things. And 5 days into that, I go to the Far Side's release party and I run into Kedar. And Kedar is like, every time I come out here, I see you. What do you do? I was like, go to clubs, work at Ticketmaster, nothing. I don't do nothing. And he's like, well, why don't you work at a record label? I said, I never had an opportunity. I said, I'm an intern right now for Relativity, but that took a while. And he was like, well, you can come work for me and I'll pay you. And so I went back to Link. I said, I know I just started, but this is Star and he's offering to pay me. He was like, girl, go get that bread because I can't pay you. So you can get the money, then go. And I was like, cool. So I started working for Kedar and I was doing retail tracking for Freestyle Fellowship and this other group called Dirt Nation that was going, it was signed to Zoo, but it was going through Steve Rifkin's company because they were doing promotions for it too. So in doing the retail tracking for Freestyle Fellowship and then the Dirt Nation stuff, the lady that hired me for that, her name is Victoria Claire. I love her dearly and I haven't talked to her in years, but hopefully maybe she's watching or somebody can tell her. I love her. Anyway, she was like, you know what? She said, there's a position open at Loud Records because the guy that's at Loud, who was Bigga B, wanted to work in the field. She's like, the guy that's there at Loud wants to work in the field. So they want somebody to work in the office doing what you do. He does what you do now, but he wants to go to the stores and do the work. He doesn't want to be stuck in the office. And I was like, okay. So she took me to Loud and I interviewed with Steve and I got hired the same day. And I started that next Monday. So it was a little bit of a journey within the whole year of 93. It started out with me being an intern and ended up with me working at Loud. So I started literally like a month before Enter the Wu-Tang came out.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So before we go into even more detail about that, I wanted to kind of go back because I was like, I don't really know this story. Like, you're born and raised in LA?
Yeah, I was born in East LA, like the movie. And my whole family, like our whole history and heritage is in the East LA and the Boyle Heights area. From right across from Evergreen Cemetery. All of our families lived on those blocks. There's Michigan Avenue, there's New Jersey Street, there's Saratoga, there's Savannah, like all those streets over there is where my family grew up. And then my grandfather bought a house. He actually had a house built in City Terrace up on top of a hill. And that's where my family moved up there. And that's where all the kids were raised and the grandkids and all of us were raised in that house. But it all started right there across the street from Evergreen Cemetery. So I grew up there, but I ended up getting bussed out to the Valley. So I spent my junior high and high school years out in the Valley. But my elementary school, my younger years, I was schooled in East LA.
So born and raised in LA. But you were born and raised in LA. So as a kid, like I'm trying to picture the scene. As a kid, Monalisa as a kid, what were you exposed to musically? What was the root of you being hella into music and the way you are? You retrain. We'll get into that later, but how you retrain so much information about music. You're a fucking encyclopedia of shit.
Well, it goes back to my family because with my family, everybody in my family had huge record collections. So my uncle Howard, he's my favorite uncle. Sorry, other uncles. Sorry.
You lost.
He had a massive record collection, but I found out later is because I had another uncle that passed away when I was 6 months old, and both of their record collections were merged into one. So he had all these records. And so he'd always, let us play downstairs in his room because my uncles had a room downstairs in the house my grandfather built. My uncles lived downstairs, and then my mom was upstairs with my grandparents. And so when we played downstairs in his room, it was like it was like another house downstairs. It was a living room with a little like hallway and a bathroom and a bedroom with two bunks in it. Actually, there was three bunks in it. And he'd always say, "Don't go in my room. Don't touch my records. Don't go in my room. Don't touch my records." So of course, what do kids do? We go in
Go in
the
the
room. We
room and
touch the
touch the
records.
records.
So, so my thing was always looking at the album covers. And so I would look through and certain album covers stood out, like the album cover for Judas Priest, British Steel with the razor blades.
Yeah.
That stood out. The Frank Zappa, weird ass Frank Zappa covers with the cartoons and just the weirdo, like what the hell is this? The what's his name? Captain Beefheart, the trout mask replica with the fish on his face. Like all that stuff stood out to me. Like, what the hell? Like, like, I just thought it was so fascinating because the covers look so fucking strange. I'm like, what is this? So then my grandfather, on the other hand, my grandfather had all jazz records. So I go through his records. And then when he would play jazz, the difference was when he would play jazz was so busy, I didn't get it because I was used to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
I wasn't used to. I was like, but I don't like this because it doesn't have a beat. Like I can't dance to it. Like I was one of those kids that grew up at like doing gymnastics and dancing. So if I couldn't dance to it, I couldn't relate to it. I was like, okay, that's too busy for me. It's too much going on. I'm not into that. But my uncle Howard, he had all kind of stuff from, like I said, all the names I named. And then he had like Blue Oyster Cult. He had Jethro Tull. He had, but then he also had Miles Davis. He had Roy Ayers. He had Donald Byrd. He had all kind of stuff. Parliament Funkadelic. And so when in getting into his records, I found out that there was different kinds of jazz, but that goes into more other stuff. So my other uncle had records. Everybody had records. So I'd always look through their records and look at the covers just to see what was going on in each thing. And I'd always read the covers and read the back and read the lyrics. And I was just into like absorbing all of that stuff. And it just fascinated me all the time. So whenever I go to a relative's house, I'd always look through their records and see what records they had to try to figure out what their taste was. And so there was a couple records in common, but nobody really had the same taste. Like my sister was into like a lot of like Elton John and Fleetwood Mac and Pat Benatar. And she even liked Barry Manilow, which got me into Barry Manilow. And then my other uncle was into like Eddie Money and Van Halen, because he was in a group that used to open for Van Halen when they used to play. They used to be Mammoth, and they used to play at Gazzari. So him and my cousins had a band called the Warriors, and they used to do shows with different people in East LA and around the scene. They used to play at the Paramount on Cesar Chavez, Brooklyn Avenue.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
So they were big Van Halen fans. So anything like in that whole era, in that whole Van Halen situation, like anything around that, they absorbed all that music. So he was into like, that stuff, like the classic rock kind of stuff, the Led Zeppelin and all that stuff. And then my mom, she grew up on Motown, and then my aunts, they were into Philly soul. And so it was just all different smorgasbord, but everybody had their own thing that they were into. It wasn't like, it was common, like certain things, of course, were common and everybody was into, but everybody had their specific thing that they liked.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing.
So
you had like, you were exposed to literally everything, all genres, all different types. And then you had the people there that loved it so much that you could but you know what? Let me go back, because that makes all the sense in the whole fucking wide world of it started that young. I was like, I'm going to ask her, there has to be a root, because I was trying to think of when I met you, and this is what I remember. I was an intern for Frank Sosa for the Unbound Project Volume 1, right? And so he gave me a list. I remember he set me up in a corner of his a Silver Lake place, and he was like, here's a computer. You're going to call these people, all these DJs. There's some DJs, but there's also some tastemakers. And I was like, what? I'm new to the shit, right? I was like, what's a tastemaker? He's like, oh, people that are influential, that, when you have a project, they always need to know about it, So I got this whole list, and it was like an email list and all this stuff. And I was like, I was like one of one, maybe 2 or 3 female doing it at the time. And I was like, how do I stand out? And I remember I would send out the email, and at this time I was still going by my government name, and I would put at the bottom, do you remember this? I put at the bottom like a hip hop question, like something like who was, I don't know what I put, but I put like just a simple question, but like whoever answered, just like for props, like some engagement back in the days. Kids, we did not have Instagram or any social media. So this was my engagement, like trying to engage motherfuckers to like email me
Right.
back because I was new on the block and like, just to make it fun for people and stuff. So everyone's like, some people would
Mhm.
engage, but the people engaged will just be like, I'll ask a question like, who came out with the song and blah, 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 blah. Everyone would just answer whatever the question was. This bitch would answer with the whole fucking dissertation. She'd be like, oh, that's such and such came out in 19 da da da, produced by da da da. And I was like, who? I was like, yo, Frank, who is this? Who is Mona Lisa? Like, she's amazing, right? And he was like, putting me up on game. And I was like, oh, and then I also would be, going out to the hip hop spots back then, and there was only a few we could see point each other out because there weren't that many females going to like this, like the big, the bigger B joints and the stuff like
Right.
that. Like there's only a few of us, so I'd be like, oh, and then I don't know, and then I don't know, we just started talking. I have no idea, but I remember my first impression was like, yo, who is she? How does she know all this shit? And boom, you just proved that's the root. You've been looking at
There's
liner
this.
notes from Jump.
I did a thing with the Beat Junkies school about a year and a half ago where they came to Amoeba and they were looking around, doing digging or whatever. And I told them, I said, one of the most important things you can do as a digger is read the liner notes, because if you like a song and you like the drums, you can find out who that drummer was and you can find out what else he drummed on, and then you can get that whole collection of that sound that you like. Or if you like a whole album and you want to see who the producer is, then you go find out whatever that producer did and you can go get all his records. But it's just a matter of
Yep.
following a trail that hits you, like whatever sound you like, you can chase that sound just by reading the liner notes and educating yourself about where those sounds come from.
Exactly. And then you start kind of seeing a trend too. Like, oh, I like this. And then you go to something else and you read the liners like, oh, produced by the same motherfucker. Like, that's why. Because he did
Mm-hmm.
it, like you see the similarities, and then you start noticing names, and then you, like, since you've been reading him since Jump, like you could most def go on like Questlove Supreme and nerd out with all those fools because they know like extreme shit just like you, like rare shit. Like, was that such and such and such and such? And you're just like, what? How do you know that shit? Like, amazing. And I'm thinking I'm like a music freak, but you're next level. And I feel like that's what's missing now, right? Like, I get irritated when something new comes out online, right? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
who produced this? How do I get to that? So I have to look
Yeah,
someplace else to try to find the fucking liner notes to something that just came out. Your industry is loud and congested. How will you cut through the noise while maintaining brand integrity? Regardless of how talented and creative your core team is, nearly all businesses need some level of support in order to communicate their message. From identity to experiential to digital, let Doyen Sharp help you speak your mind and translate rough thoughts into captivating action. Visit doyensharp.com today. That's DOYENSHARP.com. Mention WTYM and get 10% off your first project. Doyen Sharp. Cut through.
yeah, that's the thing that sucks about MP3s is that there's no more liner notes. There's no more reading, and because you feel like you're learning, like you're making the record kind of a part of you because it's just like reading a book. It's like
Yeah.
once you read that book is in you. It's like once you read the liner notes, it's like you feel like not a part of it, but you feel more at one with it because you can see how it
Yeah.
was put together. But it's
Yeah.
like just listening to it and being like, okay, what am I listening? Like on a sidebar, one of my friends hit me the other day. He said, I have a question for you. And I was like, what? He said, how come music doesn't sound like it used to? And I said, it doesn't hit the same because it's not personal anymore. It's not inside of you anymore. It's coming at you, but it's not in you anymore. Like
Yeah.
certain things still get in you. Like that's why I love still buying records, because when you buy the records, you can feel it, you can touch it, and you feel like you're connecting with it. But it's like if something's just coming at you, it's like, okay, it sounds good, but it's still not hitting me here. It's hitting
Yeah.
me here, but it's not hitting me here. And it's because of that. disconnect.
Yeah, and it's one thing too to hear something on vinyl because you actually literally hear the physicality of like the grooves and everything. So it adds another
Right.
dimension. And now, with how everything's digitized, everything's coming at you too perfect. It's like too produced, too perfect. And I like when someone's going back to older instruments and older, recording methods, and you're just like, okay, that is like bringing the soul back in. And especially, I mean, this is December 4th. We're heading at the end of a trash year. We're gonna go into another year that we're gonna be stuck inside. Like, how do I feel it? At least let me read the liner notes. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Right. Right.
don't make me have to search. Like, I'm just like, especially for minimum hip hop shit, because we want to know who produced every single fucking track, who are the guests. Like,
Right.
sometimes, like, I also get upset because, you know, like streaming, like, I don't know who was it recently came out, and I was like, there's a guest person on here, but you don't put it on the listed as a guest person. So now I gotta look. I go, I think that's Homegirl, but it's like stuff like that. So not even people are getting enough shine. Like, you have to be a bigger name to even be listed as guest, also
Right.
such and such, such and such, whatever. But yeah, liner notes, man. Every time I think of liner notes, I think of you. Also, before we go on, I usually like to do questions from the audience later, but this is very significant at this time because you just told us the kind of beginning of your entry into music industry. So that's 1993, right? You said around that time. So
Yeah, around 93. Yeah.
one question I do have from the audience is, ask her how she felt when Nappy Head's remix came out by the Fugees. And this question is by none other than B+, aka Brian Cross.
Well, I was honestly at first, well, that's a remix. So when the
Yes.
original version came out, I didn't like it. I was like, it was boring to me. The Fugees were boring to me when I first heard them. I was just like,
Ooh.
I couldn't get into them. But when that remix came out, I liked it until the onslaught of Mona Lisa, can I get a date on Friday? And then I was like, I hate the song. I hate the song. I still to this day, like, it annoys me. Like, if I hear it without the beginning, I can get into it. But if I hear the hook, it just annoys the hell out of me. But it's just because people wore it out. And I'm like, and I would go on a rant every time somebody would do it. I'd say, listen, because my name is Mona Lisa, I have done extensive research on the name and the musical history of Mona Lisa. And there are at least 131 versions of songs that have something to do with Mona Lisa. Could you please sing something else besides Slick Rick or the Fugees? And some people
Right.
got creative. They did a little digging and they found the other songs that would sing them to me. And I'm like, you get points for that.
Do they
So
do Nat
yeah,
King Cole? The Nat King Cole one?
yeah. Well, the Nat King Cole is the other one that kind of burns me up. But when people actually know how to know the words, I'm like, okay, you did your homework. I'm impressed. Or you know music because you went in. And then there's Mona Lisa's and Mad Hatters by Elton John. There's a Mona Lisa. I forgot the Mona Lisa song by Leon Russell, but there's a Mona Lisa song by Leon Russell. James Brown did a version of Mona Lisa that's amazing.
I'll have to hear that one.
There's quite a few. Yeah, there's quite a few. But yeah, there's a song called Ramona. My actual government name is Ramona. So there's another song on Motown about Ramona that somebody gave me a 45 of because they're like, well, it's not Mona. I said, it actually is. So yeah.
You
So
didn't know, but it's for reals. Yeah, because
yeah.
I cannot think of you or say your name. And the Supernatural Bear, he knows that song because when we went to, remember a long time ago, he was like, I don't know, 2 or 3. We went to go see you spin downtown somewhere. And he's like, where we going? And I was like, we're going to go see your auntie Mona Lisa. And then I was like singing him the song. So he'd known that since jump. He's like known it since jump. And I'm sure everyone, when they think of you, they think of that. So yeah, I wanted to ask you that early on.
Well,
Okay,
now see,
so
if he sang it to me, I'd appreciate it. But everybody else, I'm like,
anyone
stop.
over 8, don't do it. Don't
Yeah,
do it.
exactly. There you go. There you go.
Um, okay, so going back, so now we get the root of your exposure. You're like music university since a kid, born and raised in LA. Now we jump back into your in the music. You're working for Loud Records. I want to know, as we discussed earlier, and I've discussed it probably in so many future podcasts, being a female a woman, excuse me, a woman of color in the music industry, and then go back down into hip hop life, like rap life. How was that for you then? And then has anything changed in all of these years? Because I think that's an important question too.
Back then it was interesting. Well, I'd say this. When I first got to Loud, well, first of all, I met Bigga B at a the video shoot for Hot Potato by Freestyle Fellowship. And he was passing out flyers for Unity as usual. And he
Unity.
just kind of blew me off like, oh, yeah, hi, whatever. Here's a flyer for my show. Come to my show. And I'm like, I come to your shows all the time. You don't know my face? And that's when I actually got to talk to him. But I used to see him all the time. I just actually introduced myself to him. I said, I love your parties and I'm coming. He's like, okay, good. I'll see you there. But he was very like busy and in the moment or whatever. I was like, all right. So when I kept seeing him around or whatever, and he knew my face, but he didn't really know me. He just knew me from that introduction. So when I came to the office and Steve was like, yeah, this is the person that's going to replace you. And he was like, it's a girl. Like first he was like, like he was just kind of annoyed that it was a woman. And I was like, okay, this is going to be crazy. But I was like, well, at least we don't have to work side by side. We were doing the same thing. So we had to bounce off of each other, but we weren't sitting at a desk next to each other. That would have been crazy. So, at first it was a little bit tense because he had a lot of problems. Like I think him and Carmelita used to work together and they were like neck and neck because Carmelita's a boss and he was trying to be a boss and it
Right.
was just, button heads and they just weren't, it wasn't happening. I mean, it was love hate. It's like, I think during that time they had some kind of issue or whatever. So they were on the downside. So he was just like, oh, here comes another girl to try to boss me around. And I'm like, bro, I'm just like, I don't know what the hell happened before I got here, but please. Like, I was just being real, like, and people had warned me. They're like, he doesn't really work well with women because of experiences he's had. So just be. And I was just very like, so our bonding point came when, we had kind of learned to get along a little bit, but our bonding point came when he was trying to get Black Moon here for Unity. So he comes over to me and he goes, I need to ask you for help with something. And I was like,
what? Looking behind you.
This is weird. Like, comes and he sits me down and he says, so, because he could see like I was really good at doing memos. I was really good at like computer stuff. And, I was just a nerd like that. I was really good at typing letters and doing like fax covers. And like I would do my fax campaigns on paper and fax them out and stuff like that. So he could see that I was doing that. So he's like, there's this group on the East Coast called Black Moon and they're really dope. I was like, I think at that time we had heard a couple of their underground demos or whatever. And he's like, and I want to bring them out here for Unity, but I need to write the label letter. He's like, I'm not really good at writing letters. He's like, so I was wondering if you could help me. I was like, all right, I'll do it. And then I'll show it to you. You tell me if it's what you want to say. And I put the letter together and he was just like, wow, thank you. And I was like, you're welcome. I said, good luck, and walked away. Like, he sent the letter off and they responded like within the same day and they hooked everything up. So he got,
nice.
Because of the letter, he got Black Moon to come out here. And because Black Moon came out here, Smith & Wesson came out here. And because Smith & Wesson came out here, OGC came out here, et cetera, et cetera. So they were able to build a foundation on the West Coast because of him wanting to bring them here. And I'm not going to say they have a bigger following here than they do on the East Coast, but they have a pretty huge following here. And I think it's because of all the foundation that he laid down. So shout out to Bigga B again. But that was some of the tension in the beginning. And then working in the office was tough because all the guys got to do all the heavy stuff. And then all the girls, we were kind of like, supposed to stay in, make the phone calls and, do the office work. And then the guys got to go out and fly and travel to the conventions and all that stuff. So because I wasn't able to go to the conventions. I mean, I had my relationships with people on the phone, but I wasn't, really like given the freedom. And so me and Search became good friends. I think Fuzzy introduced me to Search and me and him became good friends. And he's like, I like your hustle. I like your street thing. I like whatever. He's like, are you going to Gavin? And I was like, no. He's like, why? I said, because I wasn't offered. He's like, I'll fly you up there. And so as a matter of fact, no, I actually ended up getting to go to Gavin, but I went in the car and then he met me there and took me around and showed me the people. And he ended up flying me back to LA. He flew one of my friends up there so that I would have somebody to hang out with. And then he flew us back to LA. And so that kind of ruffled some feathers. But oh, okay, you trying to steal my worker? So at the end of the day, I ended up going to work for Search at Wild Pitch at the end of '94. I left Loud and went over there because I felt unappreciated as a woman. There were some incidences where I was accused of being a groupie because I was so familiar with everybody and I was so friendly or whatever. There was like, I braided hair for a living. So I was recruited to braid several hairs in the Wu-Tang camp. And there was rumors being spread about me
of course.
having something to do with Old Dirty Bastard and have something to do with, and I'm like, can I get Method Man? Like, why am I getting everybody else? Like, give me Method
Hook it
Man.
up at
I would
least.
be like, all right, I would, hey, okay. But no, I mean, I was accused of so many different things. And I was just like, I'm just here trying to make a living and trying to make my name in this industry. And this right out the gate, I'm already being accused of stuff. And I was just like, I just was fed up with it. So that was why I left. I mean, I kind of wish I hadn't left, but if I hadn't left, I wouldn't have had all the opportunities I had. So,
Right.
it happened for a reason. But Loud was in the very beginning stages. They had just opened their East Coast office in the summer of '94, and Wu-Tang was like skyrocketing. So they were about to blow up. And yeah, I just felt like, you know what, I need to go where I'm appreciated. So Search took me over to Wild Pitch, and I was the female West Coast coordinator. So I was the only person here on the West Coast, but it was all mine.
Nice.
So I was responsible for everything up in the Bay all the way down to San Diego for Wild Pitch. But what I didn't know is that Wild Pitch had lost their distribution. So he was trying to resurrect everything and just build as much up until, hopefully in the hopes that someone would pick it up and carry it on after that, based on the activity. But it didn't happen like that. So at the end of May, Wild Pitch closed. I was basically there from January to May. So I got to reign queen supreme for that moment. But then I went to Immortal. I went over to Immortal Records, and Immortal Records was putting together something I'm very familiar with. So I went to go work there. And I went there because everybody there was that I consider brothers, that people that would consider my opinion, that would not treat me like a girl. They would treat me like a coworker and a peer. And that's exactly what happened. And we had a great time there. I worked with Sean B. I worked with John Stockton. I worked with Dave Miller, worked with James Andrews. And they also were doing the Buzztone thing. And so they were managing Cypress Hill and House of Pain. But working on that project was such a wonderful experience because it was organic hip hop and we all had to bounce off each other and have some great ideas. The label didn't put any money into the project, so it didn't really fly. But I mean, all these years later, people that do know about it know that every single artist on there, save maybe like one or two people, ended up blowing up into a bigger entity. Dilated Peoples is a big example of that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was the one place where I felt like I was treated equally, like as a peer, and not, oh, that's the girl, let's leave her in the kitchen, or let's have her do the little secretarial stuff and whatnot. So then Carmelita hired me to work at Delicious Vinyl, and that was great because, working with her, I felt female wise that, we looked out for each other and that I was, again, I was a peer. But during that time was when my street promotion career started. And again, my whole thing in the beginning was I wanted to, if I couldn't find music myself, I wanted to, to be able to know how to find it. Like I wanted to have some way to get it. So I started reaching out to some East Coast labels to get some promotional work. And so I was I mean, there's no ego in this, but I was the first female, I would say, to do street promotion at that level. There were other people that came along during that time that came after me, but I think I was the first person doing it at that level. I had my own company. I started my own company after Wild Pitch folded, before I got to Immortal. And I was doing pretty heavy work. I was doing the retail stores. I would put the displays up in the retail stores and, do the servicing there. And then I would go to the clubs and put displays in the clubs and make sure the DJs had all the records from the labels. And I was doing that. I did that that was 95. I did that for 10 years. About 10 years, and then I gave it up because after about 10 years it got to be really ruthless. A lot of the guys on the street were wondering how I got the accounts, like, who she's sleeping with, and I'm like, no.
Every fucking time, who is she sleeping with? She must be sleeping with, like, every single time.
Yeah, it was pretty ugly at some points. I mean, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but it got pretty ugly. But yeah. But I was one of the first females to do that. A lot of girls came up after me, and a lot of girls were killing it. So it was good to see like girls stepping up and doing it. And there wasn't too many people that were using their assets to promote stuff. Most of us were just using our brains and our hands and feet. But some people put it out there. So that was that. But
It
yeah.
was a shift, right? Like I feel like there was that shift. Like I remember when I first came into the scene, and then I started figure, because I'm not born and raised either from LA. I'm from San Diego. But when I came up here after I graduated and I started interning, and then I started working in the music industry, I was just I was living in Long Beach, and I'd drive up and I'd go to the Unities and I'd go to all the stuff. And there was, like I said, it was only a few of us in there, only a few women in there, but it was like we were you could dress and do whatever the fuck you want. But at that time, it was like we were just true, like real hip hop heads there for the music. We weren't trying. I was For me and the other women that I saw, the few that were in there, it was just like I sometimes looked like a dude. I'd have the hoodie and
I
the baggy pants and the, you know what I'm saying? Like, and my hair up and shit. And it was just kind of like, and so I was like, okay, there's only other couple females here, but I could see that they're like real fans too. And then all of a sudden it was like, I don't know, like early 2000s or something. And then it was like, what the high heels? What?
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah, and I purposely dressed down in the early '90s because I wanted to be taken seriously. Like I didn't have
Exactly.
anything showing or anything. Like I mean, I had a
Exactly.
little makeup and nails or whatever, but like as far as my figure, like I kept that under baggy clothes so I could be like, look, I'm just here to do this work. I'm not here to flirt with you. I'm not here
Same.
to, get anything
Yeah.
out of you. I'm just here to do my work and show and prove and and go back. So but it was a trip. It was a real trip. But the best part about it is that I got a lot of respect across the country because I would go to music conventions and I would talk to people and they would just hear me talk and hear good things from people that were out here that saw the work I did. And so I got work from going out there and getting the work. I go,
Yeah.
like I said, to the conventions and I talk to people and I talk to other people, have lunches with people. There was one time where I did some stuff on the side, nothing illegal, but I ended up going to jail in Mexico over some
Oh,
drama. And we had to sue Z90 because of the incident. So we got a
Z90 San
settlement. So I got a
Diego.
whole bunch of money. So I
Nice.
got a whole bunch of money. And I was like, ooh, I said, Gavin is in a couple months. I know exactly what I'm going to do. So I took a whole rack of money and went up to Gavin and just bought everybody lunch. Like all the people that I wanted to get accounts from, I was like, here, lunch is on me, dinner's on me. Like I was throwing money around because I was like, I'm going to get these accounts. And so sure enough, me doing that, it got people to pay attention. They're like, okay, she's
Of
out there doing it. Even though I didn't get that money from street promotion, I
from
got that money from somewhere else. But I spent the money in the right place and it got the attention. So once like, okay, now that I got your attention, let me talk to you about what I can do and let me show you what I can do. And I got my stuff together and I sent proposals out and I, did everything, but I did
yeah.
all the work. I put it together and just to have people accuse me of just, sleeping with people to try to get accounts. And I was like, come on, like y'all know me. Like, why would you say that about me? It was pretty hurtful.
Exactly.
It was pretty hurtful. So,
So for the people, like, the music has changed significantly since the times we're talking about right now. But back in those days, there was like a lot of conventions. There was Gavin that was up north. Well, that was in the Bay. Um, and then is CMJ still happening? That's more
no,
college, but
yeah, that was more college, but no, CMJ hasn't been happening in a while. It's been
yeah,
a
like
while.
there
Yeah.
was all these different. So Gavin's been gone for a while.
Yeah. There was Impact.
Impact.
There was Jack the Rapper. There was, New York New Music Seminar.
New
There was How
music
Can I Be
seminar.
Down? There was, what else? There was Urban Network.
Oh yes.
Um, and then I remember Timbisa, shout out to Timbisa. She was at the Gavin and she had this thing in Oakland called Oakland Sessions. I think it was 1996. I think it was. It was either 95 or 96. It was one of those 2 years. But she had Oakland Sessions and it was just a weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday convention. And she just put all this stuff together. And it was so fun because it wasn't overrun with people. It was like,
Uh,
just like, it was like, I want to say maybe like a couple hundred people, maybe like, and
Small.
it was cool because everybody could, they could network a little bit better, and we could, the camaraderie was
Yeah,
there. Like there was only a few of us there, so like everybody that went, we all linked up immediately because we already knew each other. So it was like it was easy to maneuver, and then plus we made some new friends, and it was real cool. But that was one of the ones that was smaller, but it was dope. And she put it together herself.
that's awesome.
And then let's see, Gavin, Impact. And there was BRE too. There's BRE. BRE didn't. I don't think they did it every year, and it didn't last very long. But yeah, all of those were great opportunities to network and to get to know people
Because it
across
was
the
about
country.
relationships, right? Because it was
Yeah.
like, and also what people don't understand is that at this time, with like labels, the bigger labels, they had money. It was the heyday. Like I remember, I flew, I think they flew me out to New York for CMJ, and then like all the people, like I didn't have to pay for shit. Taxi cabs, hotels, like everything was on the card. Boom. And that was like the last or second to last year. And it was over. I was like, oh, I got to feel it, taste it a little bit,
Mm, get
But these
tasted
were
a little bit.
a
Yeah, no.
little bit, and then everything started changing. But like going back to your point of, I did the same thing and I dressed the same way because of that. And I've
Mm,
talked about it too, where people are just like, yo, just be careful. You're a girl, you're a female, you're a woman out here. It's going to be like, they're all going to think certain things. So, like, don't give them any reason. Like, it sucks that we had to do that. But, like, I was like, and even like, I've said it before, like, even dating, he's my husband now. But back then, like, a group of people didn't know, because I was like, man, if they know, it's going to even run even wilder. People are going to be like, oh, she got this because of this and this. And I was like, told them, I was like, put them to the side. And I was like, I don't want anyone to know that we're dating. So people were introducing us, and I'll be like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. But we've been dating, because I was like, I don't want none of the smoke. I don't want no one to think that. But even just on the strength of people not seeing you, because back then when I would call DJs and stuff, it was on the phone, strictly on the phone. And they'd hear me and they'd be like, ooh, what do you look like? How you looking? Like, are you single? And I was like, and I tell them, I was like, this is incorrect now because it's intersex. But I tell them, I'll be like, I was like, yeah, I'm a woman. I was like, yeah, and I got a 2-inch dick. So what about it? So let's talk about these, like, let's records now. Like, you know what I'm saying? They're like, oh shit, like turn them off hella quick. But it's like that type of shit. Like you had to like dress down, not show your shape, be aware of like the perception of. And even that, right? Like even like you said, even doing the most of trying not to be seen that way, it doesn't matter, because motherfuckers get upset because they're hating on you because you're doing so well, and then they'll be like, "Oh, she fucking somebody."
I mean, the levels it was so deep that like I didn't even appreciate LA anymore because I mean I did, don't get me wrong, I love my city, but working here, like I wanted to figure out a way that I could work in New York once a week and then come back here for 3 weeks, because
Mm.
at least being somewhere else, I didn't have all the stuff. I mean, it's either, oh, she's sleeping with everybody, or oh, she dresses like a boy because she's gay. Oh, it's like, well, why are you trying to figure out my life? Like, why not just ask me? If you ask me, I will tell you, like, what I will tell you anything you want to know. But the rumors were killing me. The rumors were just killing me.
Yeah.
I was just like, I just can't deal with you guys anymore. So it just made me like want to be somewhere else. And it made me not really like, it was like I was here in theory, like, okay, I'm doing here working, but my mind is in New York, my mind is in Atlanta, my mind is in Chicago, like my mind is somewhere else. And all the people that I talked to on the phone, the DJs, and even like other street promoters had respect for me because they could hear me talk, and they'd, if I was on a conference call and they got to my city, like, okay, what's going on in LA, I would run everything down piece by piece and section by section. And some people's cities, they'd be like, what's going on in your city? It's like, oh, it's chill, we did the thing, and we put it out and we threw it out there, and it was just bam, and then bam, and then the DJ was like, whoa, and then it's like, but what are you saying, like what? And I would break it down like, the record is getting good feedback, and I have to go back to this DJ because he wasn't feeling it, so I'm going to try the remix. And then I went to the record store and they needed a clean version, so once I get the clean version, I'll go back and revisit that. And I was breaking it down to where it's like, I want to keep this job, so I want them to understand, I want them to understand exactly what's going on with this record. I'm not trying to sell them a dream.
Yeah.
And because of the way I conducted myself on the conference calls and on the phone, that got me the respect from the other street promoters. And then the DJs that I always dealt with, like, if they told me, I'd be like, look, if you don't like this record, tell me. Like, don't just play it because I'm
Yeah.
asking you to play it. If you don't
Yeah.
like it, then tell me you don't like it, and I'll try to figure something else out. Maybe you can play the instrumental. Maybe you can take the
Yeah.
acapella. You can remix it and play your own remix at your own city. Like, figure out how it works for you, but don't do it because you feel like you have to do it for me or because you feel like I'm pressuring you. Make it work for you. And they're like, I like the way you think. And and I just would get compliments
Yeah.
because I work around instead of me being like, oh dog, come on, man. Like my boss is gonna come down on me if you don't play this for me. Like, oh man, like I never did that. I was like, look, if it doesn't work for you, let's work together and figure out how it works. So I got a lot of respect from the DJs then. It's DJs that I used to send records to back then that I still speak to this day that are like, I check on their kids, I check on their family, like I
Nice
know their parents,
family.
like because we
Yeah.
built those relationships back then and it was just based on me being me and not because of what I look like or or any of that stuff. So I'm
Were
those
you
relationships.
like, did you ever give them things? Because I know when I was leaving out of that scene, I was like, I couldn't compete with DJ saying, well, what are you going to give me? I'll be like, what do you mean? They're like, well, I got some kicks over here by this is such and such label or this person. Like, did you have to compete with that, or were you ever the person that gave him shit too?
No, I usually, because the labels I dealt with, most of the labels I dealt with didn't have that kind of leverage. And if they did, there was somebody else doing that. Like when I was at Loud, I didn't deal with the DJs that were on that level that were like, well, what can you do for me? Those are the people that were dealing with the mix show DJs. And I was just dealing with the club DJs. Like the club DJs, we didn't
Yeah.
need to pay nobody in the club. It wasn't that serious. But there was a couple of DJs that did do that. That were like, well, I'm not going to play your records unless you break me off with. I'm like, okay, well then we have nothing more to talk about. Peace.
Right?
Because I knew somebody else on the upper level would reach out to that person. I'm like, okay, I'm just small change over here, but so and so at RCA with the bank account and the expense with the American Express card, they can holler
that
at you and they can get you straight.
that
Me, I can't
Amex.
do that, so
Right.
I'm gonna shut this down while we're talking because I can't do nothing for you. And that was it. But I've never had to do that.
So being in the music industry for so it's since Jump, because I know how long, because you're known as a DJ now. How long were you spinning since back in the days, but you didn't spin in public, or how did that evolution go down? Excuse
Okay,
me.
so that started way back in 1991. 1991, I used to, like I said, I used to hang out in the clubs all the time. And I met Vicious Lee. And Vicious Lee was a mobile DJ. He still is to this day. Shout out to Vicious Lee. He was a mobile DJ, and I used to hang out at his house all the time. And so I never wanted to be at home because home was very confining, and I wanted to be out. Like I was always one of those kids that was never allowed to go nowhere. Like I wasn't allowed to hang out after school or go to parties at night. So I used to sneak out. I'd say I'd sleep in at so and so's house, and then we go to the Ukrainian or go wherever, go hang out. So I was always at his house during the day, and then I would go back home when my mom came home. So I'd hang out at his house and I would watch him DJ. And so one day I remember he was playing, he was practicing a set, Sensitivity by Ralph Tresvant. And I started singing That's the Way Love Goes. And he looks and he goes, wow. He goes, you should start DJing. And I was like, I don't want all of this. Because he was the kind of DJ that, he was and is still great at what he does, but he had the speakers, he had the table, he had the big and the 17 crates, and I don't have a truck, I don't have the manpower, I don't want to talk every time I do. I don't want like I didn't the burden of responsibility. He's like, well, if you ever decide to, let me know, I'll teach you. And I was like, well, I'm already learning from watching you, just watching how you blend the songs together. I can hear the tempos and I can hear the. And he was like, yeah, he's like, you'd be a great DJ. It's not a lot of girls doing it. I was like, I know, but I don't want all this responsibility. I was young and free at the time. I was like, if I were to try to bring all these records home to my house, my mother would kick me out. And I was like, it's not. So 2 years after that, hanging out at the Good Life, after the Good Life, we used to go to the Farside Manor. We called it the Afterlife. So Farside would house up and let everybody from the Good Life come over, and it ended up being a legendary place. And B Plus has plenty of pictures of it,
I bet.
legendary pictures of it. But yeah, so one night after the Afterlife, everybody left, and Mark Love was kind of playing around on the turntables, and I walked over and I said, I watched Vicious do this at his house a whole bunch of times, but I never asked him like, how does it work? Like, how does it work? And he's like, well, you have 1 to 8 count, and you usually drop it on the one, and then you can scratch. And he showed me how to scratch phrases and So I was doing cutting back and forth with Chi Ali's Lemonade, Funky Lemonade. And I was doing Lemonade was a popular drink and it still is. And I kept going back and forth with Lemonade was popular drink and it still is. And I remember somebody from the far side yelling on the stairs like, "Hey, yo, I know lemonade is a popular drink and it still is, but play something else." You start cracking up. But yeah, so we went into some I think we did Dwick after that and a couple other records, but that was how I learned how to blend two records together and how to, how to count and everything like that. I mean, Vicious had taught me a lot too, but I didn't do the hands-on. I did a little bit of hands-on, but it wasn't that serious. Like I was really intrigued by what Mark was doing, but it was still, again, like, okay, well, that was cool. So in the years following that, I would just go to people's houses, and if they had turntables, I would just mess around. I'd practice scratching, and they'd be like, "You know how to DJ?" And I'm like, "No, I do, but I don't. Like, I'm just playing around. Like, Mark showed me something, but I'm just playing around." So here and there, but every time I did it, people would say, "Wow, you should DJ," and I'm like, "No, I don't want all this. I don't want all these records. I don't want all this stuff. I can't have it in my house. I'm not going to do it." It was just mostly like I was intimidated by coming home and saying, "Mom, I'm going to start DJing and I'm going to be bringing all this stuff in the house," and her saying no. So I was like, "No." So I remember that once I moved out of my mom's house and I moved to, I moved to a couple places, but I lived in LA and I lived on Adams and La Brea. And Truly Odd and DJ Jam had a house up the hill, up the street. And it was like 6 of them that lived in. I can't remember who else lived in there, but it was like 5 or 6 people that lived in the house. And I used to go over their house all the time. We used to go over there, smoke, hang out, chill, or whatever. And Truly, I had massive amounts of records. So I'd always go over his house and just start DJing. I just grabbed records I wanted to play and I just start DJing. And after I think the 3rd or 4th time, people were like, "Yeah, you should DJ." And I was like, "I don't have enough space." Like it was always an excuse that I would make up, like, "I don't have enough space. I don't want all this stuff. I don't want to haul all these records around." And then I would always go to the clubs and I would always see Hire and Sony and Daz and everybody bringing all these crates of records. I'm like, I would be done after the 2nd crate. I'd be like, "You know what? I ain't carrying nothing. I'm done." Like, whatever. And everybody's like, "No, you don't have to bring all the stuff. You just bring the records and the turntable's already there." I was like, "I don't want to carry nothing. I don't want." It was just very. I don't want to do it. So, after Truly Odd, after I moved from there, where did I move from there? I moved to Pico and Cochran. And same thing, went to a couple places. DJ was like, "No, I'm not doing this." So when I moved to, let me think, I moved to North Hollywood, and this is when 9/11 happened. So everybody was kind of like in a weird place. It was like the year after that. I wasn't working. I had been laid off from the labels because the labels had imploded at that point. So everybody was not signing checks and not hiring people and nothing was happening. So I went about 6 months and not working. So finally, one of my friends, she got hired as the West Coast regional for Motown. So she hired me on the spot. She's like, "I know you need some work, so come get this work."
Hi, my name is Lilian Rivera, and I am an author. And my latest young adult novel is coming out September 15th. It's called Never Look Back. It's a retelling of the Greek myth Orpheus and Eurydice set in New York with Afro-Latino protagonists, characters. It has bachata, it has Prince, it has love, it has angry spirits and goddess, and all kinds of stuff. So that's it. What's up?
And I was like, "Yay." And then Bill Evans hired me at Def Jam to do marketing for Dub C. So I had 2 checks. So I was like, "Woo, nice. 2 checks is better than none." And it was like literally like 2 days before my birthday. So I called my homeboy and I said, "I want to throw myself a birthday party." And he's like, "All right." He's like, "Well, if you give me $500, I'll hold the spot for you, and then you can have a birthday party." So I had the birthday party, but because I was so out of touch with everybody, I didn't get to invite everybody I wanted to. So there was literally like 100 people there, and the place held like 500 people. So I was like, "Well, whatever. We're just gonna make the best of it." So, we had a good time. But the thing is I called all my DJ friends and I said, "Just bring a crate of records, come DJ." I called Penn, I called Kilu, I called Phys Ed, I called, who else? I called like 6 different people. And I was like, "Just bring a crate of records and play. And then, and then we'll figure it all out, but this is for my birthday." And they're like, "No problem." So everybody came through. But everybody, we were all drinking and, celebrating or whatever. So they had a house DJ there just in case. Like he brought records and was there just in case, anything happened. He was there. So he went out to get a sandwich, but he left his records there. Everybody else was so drunk, they DJ'd, did their thing, and then they left. So there was like maybe 100 people left. No, maybe a couple. I don't know. Anyway, so I went inside, and I'm drunk at this point. I'm just celebrating. So I stagger up there, put the headphones on, dig in the bag, and I start DJing. And most of this guy's records were Rockefeller in one bag and Bad Boy in another. So it's basically like a Rockefeller versus Bad Boy set. And so I'm up there, and I'm doing all the motions, doing doing all the motions that I've seen the DJs do with the headphones, because I never did it with headphones because I never had to. I was never doing a whole set, so I never had to listen. I was always playing around. So I get up there and I start DJing, and I'm like playing the records based on how I hear the other DJs playing them. I don't know what the BPMs are. I don't know what's what. I just am playing them based on what I know. Like, oh, that's Benjamin's. Oh, that's I Want to Love You. Oh, that's whatever. So I'm just pulling them out and playing them. And everybody starts coming in the room because everybody's outside smoking. So there's nobody in the room at the time. I'm just like, I want people to start dancing. So I'm going to start DJing. And gradually people start coming in the room like, who's DJing right now? Is that right? Everybody starts coming in the room like, are you DJing? And I was like, I think so. I mean, how do I sound? They're like, you're killing it. Like, you're killing it. What are you doing? And I'm like, I'm drunk. It's my birthday. I'm A. And people actually started dancing. It was crazy. Like, I had the dance floor full. And everybody was dancing, and I was like, this is cool. This is funny. But it was, I was drunk. So I woke up the next morning like, well, that was fun. And went another, what was that? That was 2003. So I went another 6 years and didn't DJ. Like, I was like, well, that was fun. So 2009, no, it wasn't 2009. It was 3 years later, 2006. At this point, where I lived in North Hollywood, Spinderella lived a block away from me. And we had a mutual friend, and we had met somewhere else. We had met like in Leimert Park somewhere. And she was like, I want to invite you to my house for a barbecue. And I was like, all right, what's your address? And she gave me her address, and I was like, that's on the next block. Like, I'm thinking that street, it's a block over, but I'm thinking maybe it's down there, maybe it's up there, maybe it's, somewhere else. And I'm like, this is on the next block. So I get over there and I say, dude, I live on the next block. And she's like, what? I was like, I live on the block. She's like, what? So she called me one day and she's like, I need help getting organized. She's like, do you know of anybody that can come and help me organize my records and she's like, I just feel like I'm out of sorts and I want to get my stuff, in better order. And I was like, well, I'm over here not doing, this is when I wasn't working. I'm like, I'm over here not doing nothing. So let me come and help you. Yeah. And so this was a year after that situation. Def Jam had finished the Dub C project, and the same thing with the Motown thing. I was working on AZ's project, and his project was done, so I didn't have any more work. And so I was like, well, I'm over here not doing nothing, so let me come over there and help you. I was like, what do you need help with? I was like, I'll help you the best I can, but if I know of anybody that's a professional, then I'll have them call you. And so she liked what I did. She's like, well, how about I give you a little change here and there to help me get my sets in order, help me organize my records. Like, I want to BPM them and I want to put them in order or whatever. And, she just needed an extra hand to do it. I was like, all right. So I started helping her, and that turned into a whole thing. Like, I just ended up helping her stay organized and get herself together. But in the process of doing that, I was watching her DJ, and then I was able to practice because she had turntable. So one day, it was about 2006. Pete Rock had come to town, and they had grown up together. So he was over there playing PlayStation on her TV, and she was cooking dinner. And I was like, well, I'm sitting here bored. I ain't got nothing to do, so let me go DJ. So I started DJing, and he's bobbing his head while he's playing the game, and I'm sitting there like, oh wow,
that's amazing.
Wow. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, we just keep playing records, and so after, like, he just kept turning around and looking, he'd be like, hey, yeah, that's my jam or whatever. I'm sitting there like, oh, this is crazy. So after like the third time he turned around, he was like, yo, he paused the game and turned and looked at me. He said, yo, do you DJ? And I was like, and I didn't know how to answer that. I was like, no. And he's like, you should DJ because you playing all the right, you killing it right now. You playing all the right shit. And he turned around and kept playing the game. And I'm like, and I look over in the kitchen at Spinderella, and she's like, hey, like, well, like, hello. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, let me think about this. And so I went home and I thought about it. I said, I said, so if I really take this seriously and start DJing, and so I asked her, I said, what do you think? She's like, well, she's like, it's not a lot of girls doing it. She's like, music,
Yeah.
and you got everything that you need to do it. You just got to do it. She's like, I got turntables here if you want to use them, and so um, the next thing I did was I called the beat junkies. I called Rhett first. I said, Rhett, I think I want to start DJing, and he was like, go for it. He's like, what do you need? You need lessons? You need he's like, well, I think you know how to DJ, but what do you need? Like, let us know what you need. Like, I got you. Like, I know. And I asked Babs, and Babs said the same thing. Babs is like, you know the music, you got the records, just do it. Like, what do you need? Like, whatever
Yeah.
you need. If you need anything, we're here to support you. But yeah, do it. And I was like, all right, I got the blessing from the masters, so I started
Right.
doing it. So I got turntables, and people started giving me stuff, gave me turntables, gave me needles, gave me like, anything, like offered lessons. And I was like, lessons, I'm gonna try to teach myself based on what I already know, and
Yeah.
then go from there. So I BPM'd all my records, and everybody's like, you don't need to BPM your records, you just need to. I was like, no, because if I don't BPM my records, I won't know the speed,
Yeah.
and that won't, so that's how it really started. In 2006 is when I got the epiphany, like, all right, let me do it, based on Pete
Yeah.
Rock. And then the other thing was, me and Dusk used to have intense conversations about music. We used to talk about stuff from other countries. We used to talk about like random ass, like we used to talk about yacht rock, like
Yacht rock, love it.
Ambrosia and Styx and all kind of stuff. We used to talk about Billy Colon and I can't even remember anybody's name right now, but yeah, we used to talk about Fania
Hector Lavoe, like he
and
would
Cuban
always.
music.
Yeah, for
Yes,
sure.
Hector Lavoe. And we used to talk about Joe Bataan. That's what I was trying to think of. Joe Bataan, Willie Bobo. We used to talk about Sergio Mendes. We used to talk about Quincy Jones. We used to talk about everything, like all kind of like weirdo stuff that people weren't into. Like, I mean, he's one of the people I could talk to about Frank Zappa, because I was into Frank Zappa because of my uncle, and everybody else thought he was a weirdo. So I'm like, at least me and Dust can talk about him. So when Dusk passed away in 2006, I was like, there's a lot of music that
Yeah.
nobody is ever going to hear anymore. There's a lot of music that's gone with him, like a lot of knowledge, a lot of things that are gone with him. And I'm like, there's so many DJs out here that are playing music that everybody knows. But I want to play music that nobody ever hears. I want to play music that is not commonly known. I want to play music that's not on the, because I don't think I'm going to fit in with the people that are playing popular music, because everybody's doing that. So if
Yeah.
I get in, hey, I'm doing this too, it's like, yeah, but everybody's doing that. So why should you? I was like, let me make a lane for myself where I can play music that people don't hear all the time. So when I first started, I started playing like mostly like mellow soul and breaks and like stuff that you just don't hear all the time. And it was rough for me because when I finally had to start playing no brainers, I didn't know. I mean, I knew the songs, but I
Yeah.
didn't know how to play them like everybody else did. So it was like my transitions were rough. They honestly still are to this day, because it's like I don't practice playing no brainers. I practice playing stuff that nobody knows. So I know
Yeah.
that stuff. I can transition that stuff way better. But when it comes to like even some Tribe Called Quest songs, and the crazy thing was when Spinderella, she got a new computer when Serato started. I didn't want to use Serato. I wanted to play records. But I started getting hired for stuff that required me to use Serato because it was newer stuff. Like sometimes I had to play Rihanna and stuff like that. And I was like, well, that stuff's not on vinyl. So
Yeah.
and this is just me, warming up for people, just playing like the first hour of a set until somebody else came. So I had to have diverse sets or whatever. But she ended up selling me her computer. And there was a lot of stuff missing in her computer that I had to fill in. So like I liked it because it had all the stuff that I wanted to play. But like the no-brainer stuff, some of that stuff was missing. I fill it in. So it was like I would go to play something, be like, oh, it's not here, because I didn't think to put it in there. I'm like, oh, well, it's 18,000 songs in there. It's in there. So, but yeah, so even to this day, like now I have to play more no-brainer stuff, and it's a little bit difficult, but I I have a radio show on Dub Lab, and my Dub Lab show
Yeah.
is based on me playing music that is unfamiliar, like stuff that's from the past that nobody ever heard, or stuff that may have been sampled or whatever, but mostly like stuff you don't hear all the time. And that's what I like to specialize in. So now, because in 2009, was it 2009? Well, 2006, I started doing like sets in the beginning, like of people's club nights. I'd play from like 9 to 10, and then they take off from 10 to there. And then in 2000 and I'm trying to get my years together here. 2006 or 7 or 8. It might have been 2009. Anyway, there was a year when Do Over was going on. Do Over had started. I think Do Over started in 5 or 6. And Do Over had been going on, and I told them I wanted to play records on my birthday. And they're thinking she's just going to come and play records on her birthday. And I came and I did. That was my first set outdoors outside of my house. That was like a daytime actual gig, because the other ones were just low key, sneak in sets or whatever. So when I did Do Over, that was like my debut, because people started reacting to that. And I remember Peanut Butter Wolf was like standing next to me watching me play, like amazed, because he'd never seen me DJ before. And I was like, okay, he's staring at me. This is crazy. He's like somebody I look up to. He's looking at me. And then Dave Funk showed up, and then he started looking, and I was like, oh, wow, this is crazy. And then Jay Rawls was after me in the lineup. And my birthday was the next day. And I was like, well, this is kind of my birthday set. And he's like, he loved what I was playing. And so it was time for me. I was only supposed to be playing for an hour. And I got to the end of my crate. And he's like, no, keep going. He's like, you're killing it. Keep going. I was like, he's like, just keep going. So I had to work backwards in the set. And, if you're DJing and you go through your set, you feel like I played everything. So I had to go backwards. And the BPMs, everything was BPM, because I was trying to stay in order. So I had to go backwards in there. But I played another half hour, and it all worked out great. But that was crazy to have Peanut Butter Wolf, Dame Funk, and Jay Rawls watching me DJ and me. And then Rhett showed up. Rhett was just like, yep. You're doing it.
That's amazing. And I actually made a note to even that you just did it on your own. Mention Dusk. Today's the 4th. His birthday was 2 days ago. And I know that you guys were close, and that you guys had that special bond. So it's awesome to hear that that you wanted to kind of continue his legacy of playing that type of music, and it's crazy to hear you talk about, the kind of music you guys could talk about, because that was one of the things I loved when I was introduced to him and in the beginning, and we became friends and stuff. And that, it wasn't just hip hop, it was everything. And it was a lot of, Fania All Stars, the salsa and everything like that. And I loved it. And I was like, who is this person? Like, he's like loves everything I like, and I had never met anyone, because I was like from San Diego and I was going to Long Beach State. So when I was in the hip hop scene, but when I met him, it was like hip hop and salsa. What the fuck? Like, amazing. So definitely he is missed. It's still crazy that he's gone. Like, it seems like he's really not, I don't know. To me, it seems like he's not gone somehow, some way.
His spirit is still here.
It's
his
crazy.
Spirit is definitely still
here. You know
here.
what I'm saying? But speaking of, like, I remember, you're right about that timeline, because I remember I was working at House of Blues concerts down the street from Amoeba. So I'd see you started working there, and then you started DJing, and I was like, yo, I was getting rid of some records, and I was like, give them to Monalisa. Like, I got doubles of all this shit. Like, give them, like, she may or may not use them, but boom. And I was like, that was natural. It wasn't like, yo, what the fuck? She's DJing? No, it was like, of course. It's the natural progression. Like, just like everyone else, it made all the sense, whether they knew you or not. It was like, okay, yeah, for sure, Yeah. And then I had left there. But one of the questions, let's go to the questions from our audience. We have, ask her what was the moment or the actual gig that you feel you got your respect as a DJ, and that's from Rhettmatic. Was it at the Do Over? Was it at that one you just told us, or when was it?
Well, I think there's a few times. There's a few. I can't say that there's one, because there's levels. So after the Do Over, the first gig I did after that was Firecracker. And Firecracker, if you know me, every Friday, every first Friday, I was at Firecracker. You know me. Every first, I was at Firecracker without fail. Was Firecracker the first and the third? I can't even remember anymore. I'm sad, because I was at Firecracker every time there was a Firecracker. I was there because Firecracker was the quintessential place, because you could hear any song in the world at Firecracker.
Yeah.
From AC Alone to Christopher Cross. You could hear anything. You might hear Metallica one night. I don't know. But I mean, I heard punk there. I heard soul there. I heard oldies there. I heard everything there. So like, that was my favorite place. So anyway, gushing about Firecracker. Shout outs to Firecracker. Shout out to Daryl and Lisa. So when I got booked to play Firecracker, I was like, oh, I get to play at my favorite place. Oh, this is
Amazing.
so I think that was one of my favorites. I don't want to say it's my number one favorite because I've had a lot of beautiful moments after that, but that was special to me. I will say that because everybody that I love showed up to support me. Everybody that was my friend, everybody that was my road dog, everybody that was my anything in life showed up and was
Day
there to support.
ones.
And they were standing there waiting like 11:55, standing by church and was like, oh, she's about to. And none of them had ever heard me play before.
Oh.
They were all like, she is about to kill it. Like, she about to kill it. Like, they were waiting like, oh, this is going to be fantastic. She's going to kill it. And I was like, you guys already like, how do you know? Like, and I'm not thinking friendships and fake, I'm not thinking, I'm thinking, why are you guys so enthusiastic? Like, you haven't even heard me play. They're like, we don't need to hear you play. We know what's about to happen. We know. And I was like, okay, but, and I'm thinking my skills aren't, my blends or whatever. My skills aren't. They're like, dude, but it's going to be you. It's going to be you playing the songs you love, the songs we love. Just go. And Rhett was there, and J Logic was there, and Jedi was there, and Doll One was there. And gosh, everybody, it was amazing. And yeah, I put my set together because I didn't know how Serato worked. I didn't know it that well at the time. So I put the songs in order in Serato, and then I had a little piece of paper there, so I knew what order to play the songs in. I was like super nervous, but it went over great, and everybody loved it. I still have the pictures from it. And I look at them from time to time, and I just crack up like, wow, this is great.
What year was that?
Yeah, that was.
Do you remember?
That was 2009. That was the
2009.
beginning of 2009. Yeah, and then right after that, I played Boombox. And I played Boombox later that year, but yeah, the beginning of 2009 is when I did Firecracker. Asad booked me for Soul Slam. He asked me if I would do the opening set at Soul Slam, and that's the Prince of Michael Jackson party that happens every year. So that to me was my first official feeling like I made it kind of gig because I was opening for DJ Spinna. Yeah. And I'm like, that was like an honor in itself. Shout out to DJ Spinna. Just, to open for him, to be good enough to open for him and to be in front of that kind of an audience.
Yeah.
That was like a turning point for me. So that, I think the first time I did that, I felt that way, but each year it gets more and more magical. So it's like, each year that feeling is renewed. Like that's like the biggest thing for me. I mean, and I also have ended up doing the Wonderful parties too, which is the same. Asad does those too, which is a Stevie Wonder party. And but the something about Soul Slam that's just so like it's just got that family feeling, that good vibe, that thing that I love. But
House party.
I think that was it. Yeah, that's definitely it.
Speaking of Asad, let's go back to the questions from the audience. We have, the question is, this is from Asad, AKA the hater, inside joke, from Footlong Development. He's the one that she spoke of that does the Soul Slams and the Wonderfuls. And he's brought some of the most amazing events here to LA. His question is, when will you start sharing with your audience all of your experience you've been through in LA, in this LA music scene? Because he told me, he's like, no disrespect to you, but she keeps going on other people's podcasts and telling her stories. And he's like, she's going to hate me for this. And I was like, I'm going to ask her.
Well, so I can be 100 with you and tell you the reason, and hopefully he can understand what I'm saying. Okay. In all that I told you when I was talking about being a girl in the scene and all that, there was a lot of painful stuff that happened. A lot of stuff that I don't like to relive, a lot of stuff that I don't like to talk about. But it's like every story that I would tell you about something that happened back then, there's a bad part. There's a negative part. There's a part that is not pleasant. So like for you to ask me, it's easy for me to tell you. But for me to say it myself, for me to say, oh, let me tell you guys a story about it's not the same. It hits different, it feels different, and it comes out different. So
that makes sense.
I would rather use my space to talk about music that nobody's heard before, to educate people and tell them about stuff like that, as opposed to try to talk about something that I'm not comfortable talking about.
That
I mean, there's
makes
some stories I can
sense.
tell that with a smile on my face. I can say, oh, there's time we were at Unity and I jumped up and Red Man was in front of me and then I got passed over the crowd and dropped on the floor. I could talk about that. But then I have to talk about another time at Unity where somebody grabbed me or something, and I just, it's a lot. So
Yeah, it's
that's
a
why I
mixed
don't
bag.
freely
Got
talk
it.
about it myself. But it's much
Makes
easier
sense.
for me to talk about stuff if someone interviews me. So his next question might be, well, why don't you get somebody to interview you? It's like, it's not that easy. It's just, it's more so like I feel comfortable talking to you, and there's other people I feel comfortable talking to. And it's just, there's a time and a place for it, I think.
That makes
And
sense. That
that's
makes
what it
sense.
is.
There it
So
is, Asad. There it
I hope
is.
you're happy, Asad. He's not going to be happy, but it's fine. That's just what it is.
Okay, when the last question from the questions of the audience is there a particular mix that works in your head but you haven't been able to make it happen the same way in real life? If so, why do you think that is and what are the records? And this is by your friend, Rakaa.
Shout out to Rakaa. A particular mix is in two particular songs, or is there?
I
Okay.
don't, yeah, I don't
Well,
know. He just
I
says it
I would
doesn't work
say
in your works in your head but doesn't work in real life, I guess.
no. I would say every time that happens, like there'll be something that'll pop up in my head, and I'll think about it, and I'll put it in my computer, and I'll put like a experiment. I have experiment folder, and I'll throw the two songs in the experiment folder so I don't forget them, and then later on I'll try it, and it usually works 99.9% of the time. I can't think of a time where it hasn't worked. But sometimes it's very strange. It'll be like, okay, I'm trying to mix these two songs together. Like there's one where it's the theme for the White Shadow and Boogie on Reggae Woman. Like I'm trying to mix those two together and it works, but it doesn't. But it's like there's certain parts that work beautifully and certain parts that don't because they're similar, but they're not. So it's like it's all experimental. I would say it's just
Yeah.
experiment. So sometimes I experiment with stuff and it works, and sometimes I experiment with it and it doesn't. So it just depends. But there's never been a fail. If that's the question, there's never been a fail where there's been a mix that didn't work that I was kept trying to do. It's like once it doesn't work, I just forget about it.
Okay. Nice. All right. I totally appreciate the time. I know you, like, I only have you for a little bit. I kind of already went over, but do you have time for the not so rapid fire questions, the AKA slow as hell questions?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Okay.
I'm scared, but I'm ready.
The first one is it's super simple. 3 words to describe yourself.
Jesus. Blessed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, let me think. I mean, I could say happy, but that's
Yeah.
blessed, happy, and grateful.
There it
Blessed.
is. Love it. Love it. Okay. Number 2. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
From my grandfather. Learn to give to people without expecting anything in return, and be grateful for everything that you have.
Love it. Wise words of wisdom. That's real. And a lot of people forget that shit. A lot of people forget that shit. Especially, I mean, a theme that we have that when I talk to people, whether they're parents or not, is, what we learned growing up the way we did in the time we did. I feel like we're super blessed. It was kind of hard, but there's lessons learned that we wouldn't have been able to replicate if we didn't grow up in that time, in that environment, under certain circumstances. You know what I'm saying? Like we talk about how do we, how does a supernatural bear, how do I teach him street smarts when he doesn't live in the streets? like shit like that. But I feel like especially the fact that we were in the entertainment industry, first and foremost, right? But then you go another level deeper, the music industry, and then you go another level deeper, hip hop. We
Right.
learned a lot of hard fucking lessons in life, quick, fast, at a young age, that are like valuable for days, like for life, you know. And we learned like you know, like I feel like it's similar to like if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. If you can make it in the rap business, you can make it fucking.
I mean, we saw so many things from hip hop. We saw hip hop go from being underground and unappreciated to being on the radio 24 hours a day. And it's
Yeah.
like it was hip hop was not supposed to last this long. Hip hop was the
Nah.
fad. Hip hop was something that was like, oh, that's what they're doing now. It's going to go away in a couple of years. Nobody's going to take it seriously. And now there's people making millions and millions of dollars off of it on the backs of the people that made the hip hop that didn't make so much money. But now those people, other people are making millions of dollars. We were the first people to, hear some styles of rap, it's just so much that's unappreciated now because that time has passed, but we were the ones that got to see the special moments of it. And that's what's beautiful.
Yeah, no one can ever take that away from us. I always think like we were so lucky. Like we didn't have the computers, but we had the computers. We didn't have the cell phones. We had the cell phones. We got to be there, whether we were hella young or whatever. When when hip hop started, and just seeing the evolution, of it all. It's a beautiful thing, and I can talk to I've mentioned this before on here too. I could talk to my 20-something-year-old godson about the same genre of music. Like we don't have that gap, that disconnect of like, well, my music is different from your music. It's a little bit different, but it's based in hip hop. Like you love some shit that started, like we saw the beginnings of it. So I feel like we lived through some tough shit, but I feel like we're super fortunate for it. Next question. What are you doing to dismantle the patriarchy? Every time. Doesn't matter who. It's like, whoa.
I don't know.
I think, Mona, for you do it by everything you told us, everything that you've been doing since jump. You live by example. You've been doing to dismantle the patriarchy. You know what I'm saying? Like being the first, doing these different types of roles. You know what I'm saying? Like showing you sound like you come from a big family, showing anyone in your family, young or old, what is possible, being the first, being one of the few.
I think it's basically what you just said, but no, I try to be the best person that I can be. The best woman, but the best person. Just because I feel like everybody would be under so much less pressure if they just try to do their best instead of trying to be better than everybody else or trying to be the best. Just do your best. If your best is so one day and your best is awesome the next, that's all you can do is just do your best. And, again, I have to give that credit to my grandfather because he instilled a lot of good traits in all of us. He just was like, you're only as good as you can be. You're only, if you don't have it in you, you can't get it from anywhere. It's got to be inside of you, and you just have to give what you can. And, again, give what you can without expecting anything in return, but just do your best and be the best person that you can be. And we all have faults, but don't beat yourself up because we're all human. And, you learn every day, you learn something different that's going to carry you on to the next day. And that's pretty much.
Yeah, that's real. That's good advice. Second to last question. And this is going to be a good one because of who you are and what you do. Song to get you hyped when you need it. What's your go-to? Your number one. Number one
song to get me hyped. Thighs High by Tom Brown.
I'm sorry? What was that?
It's called Thighs High. It's by Tom Brown.
Okay. I'm not
It's
familiar.
a
I will
party
definitely
song.
have to.
It's you'll know it if you hear it. You probably heard it 1,000 times, but didn't know it's called Thighs High. But it's a party song, but it's I don't know how to describe it, but it's uplifting. It's about
Okay.
moving your thighs, but it's uplifting, and it brings something, brings something out in me. I play it almost every time I DJ. And I remember I was watching somebody do a DJ set a couple of months ago, and they said that it was cliche. I was like, listen, it can be as cliche if it wants to, but I'm gonna play the song until my ears start bleeding because I love it. But it's just a party song. It's just and I remember uh, reading the story about it being recorded, and it was just like fun. It was just like, we're just gonna have fun and do this song. And I don't remember the story of how the concept of the name of the song came up, but the whole recording of the song was a party, and that's what it sounds like when the song plays. So if I'm in a bad mood or just feeling like I need something to get me off my ass, I play Thighs High, and my thighs go high. I start dancing. So that's
Love
it.
it.
Thighs High.
I love it. And the final question, Mona Lisa, what will be your legacy?
Um, I think my legacy will be that I worked hard and that I stayed true to myself, um, and that I um, was a great educator as far as music, as far as life lessons. Um, yeah, that's
Yeah.
uh, strong woman. I was a strong woman. I am a strong woman. And yeah, I've never let anything get in the way of that as far as like male, female. I just did me and
Yeah.
hope for the best. So I think being a strong woman and an educator, music educator, and well, life educator too,
Yeah.
and hardworking.
That's real. Mona Lisa Murray, thank you so much for taking the time. I want to have you back on if you allow it. Like, we're ending 2020 and I want to have you back on to talk even more about music. But let the people know, I'm going to have it in the show notes, but let the people know your handles on where they can catch you and get more information and to find out. I'm going to have links to all your show and stuff like that, but let the people know how they can get a hold of you.
Okay. Social media, I'm on Instagram. It's Mona Lisa 7872. Also Twitter, 78 Mona Lisa 7872. Twitch, which will be set up hopefully in the next 30 days.
Please believe
It's
it.
Mona Lisa 7872. That's basically my handle on all of my social media is Mona Lisa 7872. I am on Facebook, but I'm not really on there a lot. So Facebook is not
Right.
important.
Um,
It's
b-
focused on
right. And before we leave, have you had thoughts about writing about your life?
people. A lot of people want me to do that. Oh, before we go on,
Yes.
what did I forget? I forgot about my Dub Lab show. I have
Oh,
a
yes, yes,
show on
yes,
Dub Lab.
yes.
This is the show that Asad was talking about, that he just wants me to talk about stories instead of playing music. It's on dublab.com. It's every third Monday from 8 to 10 p.m. and it's
Mhm.
called Paths of Rhythm.
Passive
Um,
rhythm.
and it's 8 to 10 p.m. PST. And if you don't get to listen to the show live, you can stream the older episodes. It's been on there for 4 years. It's on dublab.com. I have my own DJ page. And if you go down the page, you can see all the old shows.
Dope.
Some of them I do talk on, but most of them are DJ mixes. So in the future, I'll be doing 1 hour of song by song with talking in between, and then I'll do 1 hour of mixing. But I'm getting to that. So I'm a
Nice.
work in progress.
Right, right. So going back to people have asked you what, like, for you to write a book or for movie rights, or what are we talking about? All of it?
Everybody wants me to write a story about my experience in the music business. There's it's just a lot, as I was saying before, there's a
Yeah.
lot of bad things to cut through. There's like a lot of charcoal and there's diamonds buried underneath it. So
Mm,
it's just a matter of me being able to get to a point where I can sift through all of that and make a story that I think is worthwhile.
yeah.
I'm not saying my story isn't worthwhile, but I have to make it make sense and sort through it and be able to build the stories, because there's so many stories I can tell that are just random. random happening. This happened in the club. This happened at this party. This happened at the show or whatever. But in order to, I think, to write a good book, it has to have a journey and a story. And, there's ups and downs and, twists and turns. So I would just have to figure that out. But there's also a lot of things that I can't put in the book because somebody will come after me. So I got to figure that out too. But I mean, it's it could happen. I'm not going to say no, but it's not the first thing on my mind right now. The first thing on my mind right now is getting my DJ career in order to survive the times that we're in, to figure that out, and then we'll see what happens.
Well,
I think I have some more travel to do.
Yeah. Once it's allowed, once it's safe. And I'm excited, for your Twitch. Like I need to see more women on there. I follow some people that I love. So I'm excited for your Twitch to be up and running and start getting you, those subs. I'm just learning.
Yes.
I'm like, what? I was like, what is this? What? How do I? And someone was like they were trying to give me something. And I was like, I don't understand. Like, what does this mean? And I was like, oh, these things. It's like, it's crazy. I love it.
I was on there sleeping for like a month, like just watching, like, okay, what's going on here? What is that? And I didn't touch anything. I just watched, like, okay, what is? Okay. And then I would go and poke on stuff and look and be like, okay. So then once I got active, I was just like, bam, 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 bam. I started doing everything. And I was like, and I had to go because the crazy part, and not to get on the side, but you have to go on the website to figure Twitch out. You can't do it on your phone. So I'm on my phone like, well, how come? And it's not letting me. What the hell? And so once I went to the website, it's like, welcome to Twitch. We're about to show you how to do all this. And I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus. So they actually walk you through it when you go to the website, and it teaches you everything. Like, this is how you do this, and this is how you do that. I was like, why didn't I come here in the first place? Because we're so programmed to be on our phones that I thought the phone was going to show me the light, and the phone didn't show me nothing. So once I got on the website, I was like, oh, this is... So I was able to put my whole page together just based on, seeing all the back end of it. And then now I have 105 followers that are waiting for me to do something. So like the pressure's off. So I'm like, okay, I got followers just from being in the chat room, just from having my page set up. So I'm like, okay, let me get my stuff together. So it's coming.
Nice. Well, I can't wait. Well, Monalisa, thank you so much. You're the bestest.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
And now introducing
the Supernatural Bear Corner. Supernatural Bear. Hello, everyone. It is SNV right here. I'm here in the recording studio, aka the closet, and Auntie Monalisa, this is a song that you requested. Hey Monalisa, can I get a date on Friday? And if you're busy, I wouldn't mind taking Saturday. Hey. Round up the posse, Fuji's coming around the way. Yeah, pretty much it. I'm also here to say some stuff. So we have a Patreon page. So become a patron today. It's pretty cool being a patron.
a patron.
Patron. Sorry. Typo in the house. Typo. I'm reading the script.
You're not reading the script.
Yes, I am.
You're not. You're freestyling. There's no script.
Yeah, I am.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Anyway, back to the script. Anyway, become a Patreon today. Patreon today.
And tell them to buy stuff from the store.
And buy all the new stuff from the store. Tote bags, pins, all that stuff. Word to your mom. Tote bags. Lemonade was a popular drink and still is. Tote bags.
I don't know if they're on there, but yeah, tea towels.
Oh yeah, sorry, tea towels.
Remember when I used to eat sardines for dinner?
Those are tea towels.
Yep.
And also check out the pins. The Prince pin,
the
Stevie Wonder pin, and also my Voltron pin as well. Anyway, bye.
Shoo-be-doo. That is correct. Episode 14 is over. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Monalisa Murray. Go check her out on all the socials, on the Twitch. Is it the Twitch? Woo! It's a little old right there. On the Twitch. On Twitch. On doublelive.com. And when shit's safe again, sweat it up at Motown Mondays and wherever else she's spinning. But yeah, man, good one. And Supernatural Bear, I mean, next level. Believe me, there's no script. That's freestyle, and he just likes to harass his mama, as you can see the past couple episodes. But yeah, thank you so much. Hope you guys are out there doing whatever you can to flip these 2 Senate seats. And anything else we need to do in Georgia to make proper shit happen, proper change happen. And like the Supernatural Bear said, check us out. Patreon page, there's a link, bio in the link in bio. And you can donate directly. You could also leave reviews, spread the word, all that good stuff. So let's see. I'm thinking we might take a week break for the holiday and then relatives to end out the year. And then the bonus with the Supernatural Bear and I think that's better, maybe. Bring in the new year, get that new year energy, see what's going down. But thanks again. I really appreciate all the support. Been doing it since September 10th, and it's been nothing but love, and I love doing this. So if you want to continue to support diverse voices, let's do it. Thanks. We reap. Word to Your Mama is owned and produced by Ritzy P. Intro beat produced by none other than Nico Beats. And Word to Your Mama is always brought to you by RitzyP.com, DorianSharp.com, and PanoplyBPO.com.